Hi, everyone. My name is Ambriehl Turrentine. I am the Assistant Director of Marketing and Communications for Destiny City Film Festival. So welcome to our 9th annual festival. Today, I am very excited to be here with the director and writer of the short film, Tim Travers and the Time Traveler's Paradox. So Stimson, I will let you go ahead and introduce yourself. Feel free.
Well, I'm Stimson Snead. I've been a working filmmaker for the better part of the last 10 years. I have a great deal of fun with shorts, and Tim Travers is me aggressively having fun with just how weird I can get.
I agree with that. It was a lot of fun. It was so much fun, so hilarious. I guess my first question is, what brought you to tell this story?
Well, as the opening credits say, there was definitely drinking involved. Um, I had been at another film festival, and by sort of dumb luck, there had been back-to-back several time travel stories. And the thing all these films had in common was that they would use time travel as a metaphor for the human condition, a means of self-examination, and I hated that. And really just wanted to do a film about a character who gets his head so far into the weeds of the mechanics that could be the comedy itself, because time travel itself is so interesting, the actual theory behind it and all the various reasons that it wouldn't work, which is a lot of what the film is playing with, that just letting a character dive as deeply into that is going to be funny, especially if you have a character who is as unapologetically nasty as Tim Travers.
And you cover a lot, from time travel to, questions about God and existence. So I'm curious how the story evolved. And as you were writing it, did you know exactly where you wanted to go with it?
Yeah, actually, it was one of those ones where I was never sure was the humor, like what's going to work here, what's not going to work there. But I liked the idea that within this 20-minute window of time, how much can I one up myself? Like, okay, in the first 5 minutes, we're going to cover more time travel theories than are covered in most feature-length films. Then I want to use that to get into looping. And then I want to use that to get into elements of a hollow universe, after first dealing with the idea of how time would freeze at the event horizon of a black hole, and deliberately throw in a few stuff designed just to be confusing and wrong to see if anybody would notice. That's what the whole bit with the football is.
Mhm.
That is in there to piss off the 0.1% of the audience who actually knows what the film is talking about. It's very deliberately trolling them.
That's lovely. I love that so much. And just from how you talk about the film, obviously, I can tell you have a deep level of respect for sci-fi. And what I particularly loved is it's obviously very hilarious, but you can tell again that you have this respect for the sci-fi elements, and you do put a lot of thought into these questions that are kind of coming up in the plot. So I know it's not your first sci-fi film, so I'm just kind of curious. Could you talk about your relationship with science and science fiction, and maybe why you like telling stories through this genre?
I came to science fiction very much by accident and to my detriment after I was already out of college. I was kind of one of those artsy fartsy kids back in school who sort of never really got into the sciences or the STEMs, and was stupidly proud of that fact. Uh, and then as soon as I was out of college, I ended up doing this web series where, for the visuals, to make the visuals more distinct and separate from things like Star Wars, stuff like that, I decided to use all real Hubble telescope images. And then I ended up falling into this rabbit hole of just wanting to understand everything I was looking at, until by a year later, I was auditing classes at UCLA in astrophysics, astronomy, making friends with folks at MIT just so I could pick their ear. And so basically, I ended up becoming an armchair crazy person into this stuff. Part of what actually led to Tim Travers was I had just done a short film for NASA and JPL that was an educational film about the Mars Spirit rover. And I was also working on a show with PBS. And I wanted to do something mean, because everything else I was doing was so good-natured and feel good. I wanted to do something just kind of mean, but dealing with all that same subject matter. But no, I was very much late to the game in the sciences, and I am still absolutely obsessed with every nugget of weird information I can come across, especially where astrophysics and astronomy are concerned.
Yeah, that's super interesting to me. And I guess just from a writing standpoint, how do you approach your stories in sci-fi? And do you kind of prefer sticking with comedy, or just kind of what's the writing process in this genre for you?
For putting stuff in sci-fi, for finding the stories, I don't have to. That's one of the nice things about Tim Travers and the weirdness of time travel. All the actual theories, when you dig into the weeds on this, are so much more interesting than what's in your typical fiction story. That's always what frustrates me with these time travel stories that get very character and metaphor driven, is the metaphor is nowhere near as interesting as the actual science. So all you need to do to get a good story is to just follow what the science actually indicates, and the rest falls into place. That's where the fun of that comes from. And as far as going into comedy goes, that's usually me just not being able to help myself. Like, I do really sincerely try to make my stuff serious and fail miserably every single time.
I don't think anything about this film could be considered a failure. I personally loved it, and I'm sure our audience has and will too. But I guess just to kind of speak to the actual filmmaking aspect and the technical side, another laugh I got out of the several was in the credits whenever it says Samuel Dunning over and over and over again. Great touch. So I am curious just about the filmmaking. I assume there was use of split screen. So could you kind of speak about how it was shot, and then also the production design? I'm super interested in that too.
Oh, that's so many different subjects. With the production design, the original script was very, very low key. We knew we were going to do a lot of split screening, and I'll get to that part of your question in a second, but just first focusing on the art design. The script basically describes the time machine as a 6-foot tall box with a door on each side. And that's all I really pitched to the art department. And they sent me back this wonderful guy, Vincent DeFelix, with North by Northwest up in Washington State. He sent me probably a dozen sketches of these huge, elaborate, intricate designs that were just wildly beyond anything I would have imagined. And they're tucked into the corner of the very first page, like barely the size of a thumbnail on this otherwise big page of drawings, is this little triangle shape. It's like he'd put it there almost apologetically, which, as it turned out later on, he had. He had actually not liked it very much and had shrunk it down and included it via Photoshop. But just, it was immediate once I looked at it, that's the shape, because there was something gothic and monolithic and immediately iconic about it. Like there was a weight and a heft to it that just I found genuinely creepy. And the moment I saw that and we decided that's what we're going to do, that kind of dictated the look of the rest of the film, because we realized this machine was going to be so big, standing at a whopping 24 and a half feet tall, that it would absolutely overwhelm the film. And we should lean into that. We even did a camera technique where we actually shot everything in the film like we're staring down at the face of a clock, with the machine at the center of the clock and the line of action on a circle around it. So even though there's only a handful of shots where you can see the machine in its entirety, there's almost not a single shot in the film that you're not seeing part of it in the background, so that it gets to be, it's Sam's actual screen partner is the machine. And that dictated so much of the look of the film. As far as the technology of it, split screening is not a new thing, and I kind of went into it knowing that. So I decided to mix it up as much as possible. It is not accidental that the first time we get a split screen, it is the standard person here, line down the middle, talking to each other, timing match, because we've all seen that done before. And so I do that first, kind of just to get it out of the way, because I wanted to get fancier. So then we would have scenes where we would have 5 or 6 character Sams all split screen together, but we also did rotoscoping, which allows Sams to move behind and in front of each other. And where we got really sneaky is we brought in 2 different body doubles who look like Sam. So for at least half the shots, anytime you can't quite see his face, that's actually another physical actor there, so he can actually physically interact with himself. And you see him slapping himself on the back, leaning against himself. it creates this wonderful physicality to it, which I fell in love with. Like there's a bit where he's already killed himself twice, spoilers for the film, and he's sitting on one, and one of his wounded selves is leaning against the corpse of one of his previous selves, while the other one of him is grabbing ammo from a different corpse to shoot the other dying version of himself. And in that case, all the corpses are the body doubles, which is why they're physically interacting. And we're using modern technology to make our split go at a diagonal line through it to hide it.
I love hearing you. Yeah, I love hearing you talk about this film. And it's interesting just because, I mean, watching it obviously is a blast, but hearing you talk about it is similarly a blast in the same way. So I just kind of wonder, like, did you, obviously you had a lot of fun making this, it seems. Did you have any specific, go ahead.
It was a hoot.
Yeah. So did you have any specific, like maybe one or two moments in mind that were your favorite, or just, I don't know, speak about kind of what was your favorite parts of this production?
I would say the best part of the production is the part that I had nothing to do with, and that's the lead actor. Samuel Dunning is Tim Travers, and I'm not trying to massage his ego, but given that it is effectively a one-person cast, it lives and dies by his performance. I do not think this film would work at all without an actor of his caliber in there. And there are scenes in it that are several consecutive pages of him monologuing at himself. And Sam not only makes it not boring, but fun and funny and interesting to watch. And so for me, a lot of it was just getting to take these sort of insane ramblings that I had written down, put it into the hands of an actor like Sam, and watch him make it work. And that to me was the best consistent experience of it, was watching that. Although one of the funny things is I remember bringing this up with Sam to compliment him, and he sort of confides in me, I haven't the faintest idea what I'm saying. He straight up does not understand it at all at parts, but he can sell the hell out of it.
He absolutely did sell it.
All of my favorite bits are always just those little filmmaker. They have nothing to do with the actual quality of the film. They're just the funny little stories behind it. So like when we're seeing Sam shouting at the others and then the door opens behind him as God walks in, we discovered that garage door could not be opened remotely. And the only place it could be opened was physically in the shot where we needed it. It was impossible to open the door. So what we had to do is the first AD is standing directly behind Sam in the shot, and then the camera dollies forward after it starts opening, and she is literally dancing around him, behind him, using his body to block the view of her.
That's great.
Oh, just the Cheyenne Smith, who was fantastic, great first AD, but just one of those, the weird little workarounds you have to come up with on it. I know the bit Sam hated most was when he's dangling inside the black hole, because he's actually physically holding himself up. Like he's only about a foot off the ground in real life, so we didn't have to do a harness, but he is being held up just by his own muscle strength. And it's not a proper bar he's grabbing. It's shaped more like a large box, so you're having to just sort of finger grab it like that. And that was just driving him nuts because he couldn't last for more than a few seconds at a time. We had to sort of string together that scene in the edit.
And while we're talking about Sam, have you worked with him before, or was this your first time?
This was our first time working together. We had actually met at a different festival about a year prior, literally the week before COVID hit. So what ended up being my last festival for over a year. And we were on the same panel together. And we had both just watched each other's films. So we had both already liked each other creatively, because he's also a director as well as an actor. And I had just seen effectively a 20-minute audition video from him, where he was excellent in it. We kind of just hit it off. And as soon as I kind of made the decision to do Tim Travers, which I didn't really fully commit to until a few months later, even though I had already written it at that point, I reached out to the festival director, asked her to put me in contact with Sam. She did, and she got a special thank you in the credits because couldn't have done it without him.
Yeah. I mean, he, like you said, he sold it and completely knocked it out of the park. I guess, I mean, I always like to ask, is there anything else that you'd like to share about the film that maybe, I wouldn't know about or wouldn't think to ask? Hello?
Well, yes. Um, that is a good question. The stuff that you don't think, I think the stuff that people don't think about is always the camera philosophy. Like, I'm sure to no one who's not a DP cares about my line of action as a clock face. But for years before directing, I was a DP, and that's the sort of thing that just really is the sort of thing that I get lost in the headspace of. Not just the individual shot composition of something, but what is the overall thematic, visually thematic framing to something, especially where a short is concerned, because oftentimes the short, you're dealing with one location, one setting, and trying to make that as visually dynamic as possible. For the most part, I think we succeed. I hope.
I think so. Yes, absolutely. And I'm curious, do you have any other projects you're currently working on? Anything lined up in the future?
Yes, we're actually waiting right now to lock down the dates to the, so here's the part I haven't been talking about much. Tim Travers is actually part of a feature film anthology.
Oh, wow. That's exciting.
It will eventually be released. So the short you've seen will eventually be released as part of a feature film that's going to contain actually 4 shorts that tell one overarching story, but with different characters all kind of feeding into it. And so we just greenlit the second of those 4 shorts, which is a film called Lab Rats, which is another single location, but also visually stylistic piece that will be part of that same anthology. So in the watching, the audience will be going straight from Tim Travers into the film I'm getting ready to go into production on. We're just waiting right now to get the production dates on that.
Well, that is amazing. Congratulations that you're getting started on that. And hopefully, I mean, maybe you can come to DCFF and hopefully we get our audience to stick around with Tim Travers in his full story.
Absolutely. The only sad part about the next one is because it's all unrelated characters. It doesn't have Tim Travers, much to my grief.
Well, I'm sure, I mean, this one was great, so I'm sure the next one will be too, and the future one. So we definitely look forward to it. But again, thank you so much for sharing this film with us and sharing your personality and this, I don't know, everything you had to say about it. I really enjoyed this conversation. Oh, bye. Wait, what's their name? What's the cat's name?
This is DC. And if you know your Disney movies, you'll know what that's a reference for.
I might not be there.
Classic Haley Mills, That Darn Cat.
There we go. All right. Well, again, Stimson and DC, thank you for joining us. Thank you to everyone watching this. I hope you enjoy the film and the rest of this festival. Again, this is Tim Travers and the Time Traveler's Paradox. That is a tongue twister. And it is playing in our DCFF After Dark. So tell your friends and share the news. And again, thank you, Stimson, so much.
Thank you.